Welcome into the WJHL.com Digital Center here on WJHL Plus. I'm Murray Lee, the digital executive producer here, and I'm joined by one of my coworkers and colleagues, Jeff Keeling. And as we've started to approach this 1 year anniversary since Hurricane Helene, there are a lot of stories being shared that we've all recalled, some that we were very well aware of, some that got wide publicity, but some that we're just now hearing for the first time. And Jeff, I don't know, a lot of our viewers probably don't know, but everyone here in the newsroom is very well aware that you had a very, very profound experience on the day of Hurricane Helene.
Yeah, Murray, I did. Not expecting to when I got up that morning, and that experience actually uh, traveled on to the next day. But when I came into work early that morning, about 7:30, I actually went to a Johnson City Development Authority meeting. Came back, had interviewed somebody for that, and thought I'll just, sit here and do my little Johnson City Development Authority story today, and let everybody else go and cover whatever's going to come out of this event. Which at that point in time, frankly, we were just like everybody else. We weren't expecting anything close to the magnitude of what we found, but that was not the plan that our news director Jay Quaintance had. And he's like, "Hey, we're trying to send everybody out somewhere. Why don't you go down to Greene County?" Our colleague Chris Greer was like, "Hey, Jeff, you should go down to the Nolichucky Dam and get some footage down there. There's probably quite a bit of water that's going to be coming over that dam." So I shot a little bit of the water coming over the dam. And I remember I talked to a guy that was from the radio station there. We talked for a couple of minutes, and again, I mean, it's a lot of water coming over the dam, but and it makes decent footage, but that was about the extent of it. And so that's when I made my fateful decision. When I thought, okay, I'm at the Nolichucky Dam. So if I went back to Johnson City through Greenville, it would take me just as long to get back to the station as if I travel up Highway 107 through the countryside. It's prettier. And hey, maybe I'll get some interesting footage if I go up 107. No idea what, the situation was with the river at that point. And as I started passing into Washington County and the South Central community, um, I I looked at some point to my left, and you can probably bring some of that first clip up. And I'm like, okay, the water's getting pretty high here. That's a barn that I reached, and I saw these guys that were working there trying to. Is that still rolling or
No, I
frozen?
just held it
Oh,
up for
okay,
a second.
cool. So these guys are there, and they're working on. We're not getting the full screen there
Yeah. Oh yeah, one moment here, I can fix that.
yet. All right. Yes, we have a fix for this. Um, so I begin, I'm to fairly familiar territory at this point, and so let's stop it there if we can. Can we pause it?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So the barn was this barn that this turned out this farmer Chris Renfro that I've known for a while. It was one of his barns. He does a lot of farming around the Nolichucky Valley, and that barn, I think it got washed away. I'm not 100% sure, but certainly all the hay that was in it was lost, and there was some heavy equipment, farming equipment in there that didn't survive. This is still early. It was probably quarter to two or so, if I had to guess. And so these guys are just kind of walking around. That's Renfro over by the truck there with the hoodie on. They're just walking around, neighbors of each other, trying to help each other figure out what to do there. So I'm running into situations like that, and then the next shot that it passes on to is right outside Enon Baptist Church, and so you can pause it right there. Well, you can go on a little bit longer, and so at that point, the water's approaching the road. Okay, keep going there, and okay, so that is, as it turns out, you can pause that. You can see the church in the background. Water is already pretty high up on that Baptist church. I came to know the folks from that church real well as the last year has gone on. Didn't know who these people were at the time. It's really kind of astounding how well I've gotten to know a lot of people down there in the interim. But I'm like, okay, that church, that just does not look good. I'm continuing up river, and my expectation is that I'm going to get to, there's some people trying to save their cows, make sure their cows don't get drowned. But you could see a house back there if you want to pause that. I mean, saw way too much of that just even in that 30-45 minute drive. Again, just trying to get footage of things that look to me like they're worth trying to bring back to the station and show what's going on down here. Kind of distressing scenes, but I'm just basically kind of in the moment trying to work, and heading towards back to the station to see what I can do. That Then I get to the crossroads and I look over to my left, and you can see in kind of the very center of that picture, there's a green sign. It's to the right of the yellow sign, and that's the sign that basically says Taylor Bridge. So that gives you an idea of what was going on when I got to that crossroads and looked to my left. And at which point I realized, okay, I'm not going to Johnson City via Taylor Bridge and Cherokee Road. And everybody's just, I mean, you can see all the phones out there. You can roll it just a few more seconds there. So everybody's just gawking. You can see the strength of the river. You can see, if you watch closely, you can see past the trees how fast the river's running in its main channel, and so that was pretty astounding. And what I did at that point was I thought, well, I'll see if I can find some people to interview. Finished those interviews, and I turned around to go back 107, go downriver. I'm like, guess I got to go back to where I came from and get home, the other way. So I'm driving back. I get to a low point in the highway, and there's this truck that's probably got his you know bottom of his truck is probably 2.5 jacked up 2.5 feet off the ground, and he's coming back the other direction toward me, kind of shaking his head.
That's
And I
not a good
see
sign to start
it
with.
was not a good sign, but Marty Johnson, that's county commissioner, had told me, "Hey, you can sit on my porch and work." And uh, so I went to his farm, and then I noticed a couple that were sitting on their porch in the next door house. And so I just kind of ambled over there and said, "Hey, I work at the TV station, and I'm working on stuff here, and I kind of think I'm stuck. And do you care if I sit on your porch and work?" And they're just sitting there watching the river across the highway, lapping up to the side of the highway and talking about how crazy it was, just like we all were. And their name is Danny and Kathy Kinley. Ended up spending the night at their house. And I'm forever grateful to them, and met them and have talked to them a few times since.
Mhm.
And on Friday, um, again, I talked about how I was able to get some small files sent back to the station. That was via my phone because there was no power, so they didn't have internet at their house. I woke up the next morning, probably 5 o'clock or so. But I mean, it's like I don't know what to do except work. Plus, I'm thinking to myself, this is one of the most amazing stories, if not the most amazing story that I've ever found myself in the middle of, and I am literally in the middle of it. As a matter of fact, tell me, I understand you guys were sort of talking about me some
Yeah,
that afternoon and
yeah, I don't want people to think we
evening.
were like not concerned about Jeff at all. It's very manic, hectic, sort of atmosphere back here, which I'm sure is true of everywhere during that day.
So
But
I get it. I was a
yeah,
low priority for a
no, that is
while.
not what I'm saying. No, we did, we did think at one point we were like, Jeff had said he was on his way back a while ago and still is not. And then we started to realize as information was coming in that there really wasn't a bridge scenario in which you could return without going, I mean, very, very,
And to
very far
Newport or
back.
something.
Yeah, heading all the way like out of our coverage area to get back around. And so we started wondering, what was going to happen there. And I think there was a method we were able to deduce, or someone was able to speak with you enough that we knew you were going, like you were safe and that you were going to be sleeping down there for the night.
Yeah.
But then we didn't know exactly where along the highway you were. And so flash forward to later that evening, the TVA sends out this proc like this major alert, like imminent failure coming to the Nolichucky Dam, and they're going around and they are evacuating people. They're telling people you have to leave. That they were saying, it's not a question of if, but when this dam breaks, and we need to get everyone out of this floodplain. And so we didn't know that you were above the dam. And so, it's been such a long day already, but it's around, I want to say it's around like 11 midnight. I don't know exactly when. And uh, myself and Chris Greer and our assistant news director Shannon and our director Jay, we're all talking with one another trying to figure out where you are exactly. But it's late at
I
night.
think I was asleep by
You were
then.
definitely asleep, and we were like, "Oh no, did we just trap Jeff in the worst possible place? And does he know? Because there's no power. Does he know about this alert?" And we ended up actually because we have like we have trackers on our vehicles, and we were eventually able to deduce and like find your location and realize that you were not in you were not in a place that if the dam did break that you would not be safe. And so
Right.
we were all able to finally go to sleep at that point.
Good. And I'm
After
glad you care enough that it was hard for you to go to sleep until you determined that I was safe.
yeah,
Thank
we
you.
were all very very concerned.
So, so yes, I was safe. Woke up the next morning, walking around. It was kind of post-apocalyptic, and people were just wandering around by the bridge, looking around. And so I think the first person I talked to was this woman with her daughter, and turned out they lived down in Greene County, and they were on this island also because it was a pretty big area, and they had just come up to look at what it was like, upstream from them. It's Saturday morning. Do you have any knowledge expect in terms of ability to get back to civilization or to get your power or water on?
Right now, we know nothing. We know we're landlocked because any bridge for us to get out is impassable right now or shut down. We're alive. We have a home. So, we're blessed for another day.
So, that was really, frankly, the attitude that a lot of people had. Incredible stories, no idea what kind of duration this was going to be in terms of impact, and no water, no power. And then, frankly, I mean, this is the way people are around here. And I think in some respects, the further out uh, into the rural areas you get, even the more so, they're just like, we're gonna just figure it out. And so that was kind of what was going on. There's Taylor Bridge.
What's
uh,
left of it.
yes, which was nothing. And so after talking to her, I ended up talking, and we're gonna probably get to him right here in just a second. A man named Daryl Fender, and he lives in a part. There he is. So Daryl, ran into Daryl. He was kind enough to speak to me a day after his newly set trailer had been washed away. So I mean, they weren't, and they may not have even said it yet, and that they were going to be living in, down near AJ Willis Road, Tittle Circle, an area that was just horribly damaged. And it's the area behind him, and then to the picture, out of the picture to the right, just a large, beautiful but low-lying, a flat area where quite a few people live. And he's describing, what he encountered, what he went through in the moment as they got away, and he's also talking about the fact that there was that his understanding was that Jerry Hunter and his wife had been Vicky had their house had come unmoored, and they were on it, and that he had heard that Jerry didn't make it. And honestly, it was, as I think back about it now, and as I went through this morning, and went through all this footage, and went through these interviews, it's pretty emotional. I think a lot of the people probably who are, who were really, really impacted by this are probably having a real hard time. Um, I'm sure they're having a hard time this week, and I would say if I were one of them, it would be very hard to read anything or watch anything on television about this 1 year anniversary this week, because it was incredibly traumatic. But you can hear him talking, and it's like he knew more, because he was right there, about some of the most tragic consequences of this day for our area than we did or anybody did. And as it turned out, unfortunately, what he'd been hearing turned out to be correct. So you can go ahead and play his.
Everything we own gone, and it's devastating up there if you just go look. I run down the road, wading water to my waist, showing them where the road was at, and he followed me out, and he went on and got them out safe. And Jerry Hunter, I don't think he made it. You know.
So this is a man named Jerry Hunter.
Yes.
He lived down by you.
Yes, his house got washed away, and he got stranded in his house. Him and his wife both did. I think she made it, and they said that he didn't, so I don't know for sure. But that's just what the mailman was telling us when he come up and told us what was going on. I seen the flood in '77 that washed all the bridges out, and it didn't do near as much devastation as this one right here done. We're going to do the best we can. Country folk will survive, one way or the other.
And honestly, it's weird and sad to listen to that again today. I mean, I've been scrubbing through some of that footage for some of our work that we've done this week, just the B-roll, but hadn't really listened to a lot of the interviews. I got kind of emotional just listening to it, and again, this resilience and almost stoicism. But everybody was just gobsmacked that day, and I've spoken to Daryl Fender a few times since this point also, and again, I got to know a lot of people, and I can honestly say, Murray, that I don't expect that I'm ever gonna. I mean, this is seared in my memory, just like where I was that whole day when I went down to Greene County, when I went to the dam and the bridge, and what I saw when I drove up 107. Going back, trying to get back, Enon Church, all of it. Um, is I think I may remember it pretty vividly for the rest of my life. So after I talked to Daryl, I went down to his neighborhood, and that's what this next bit of footage is. Before I go down to that area of Tittle Circle and AJ Willis Road, and I get some footage of the aftermath of the water uh, raging through there. And then I ran across a woman. She was driving a Gator, or a side by side, and her name turned out to be Diane Shelton, and she um, lived up the hill from on the other side of AJ Willis, from where Vicky and Jerry Hunter's house had come to a rest against some trees before it broke up with them on it, and Vicky had ended up spending the night with Diane Shelton after the rescuers got her to shore. And Diane was just talking about that, and also about just what they saw and what she saw, and how incredibly heart-wrenching and epic it was.
The water came up fairly quickly. In about 45 minutes, we were really scared. Very, very scared when we saw homes coming down the river. We saw people in their doorway, in their homes, screaming for help, and we couldn't get to them. A house came down the river, and I could hear screaming. So I ran up through the neighbor's yard, and I continued to hear the screaming. So I yelled back, and she answered me. Her name is Vicky. The rescue team was there, and she was able to bail, and they were able to get her in the boat. I have her now. She spent the night with me. We have no power. We have no water. We're just trying to depend on ourselves and try to get through this. I've been here 25 years. I've never seen anything like this.
So, I mean, there's the resiliency, there's the selflessness and helping neighbors, and the toughness, but also you can see that these folks are just like, I just don't know what to say about this. There's no words to describe what had come through. So I continued. I headed down 107. The water wasn't across the road anymore. There's helicopters flying overhead. It's just bizarre, honestly. And so I learned that there were people that were trying to fix the Jackson Bridge, very low-lying bridge, a few miles downstream of Taylor Bridge, had not been destroyed, and there were folks from the community that were just driving bobcats around and trying to clear that bridge. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just keep working. I went down there, and I interviewed a local pastor, and he was there working, and he talked about what they were trying to do. He also talked a little bit about um, what they had done the day before, helping some people in a campground there where a bunch of campers were. But see, that's Jackson Bridge Road, and that's people working on trying to clear the road, and then further on you'll see the bridge. And so shooting video there, and I get to this interview with the guy there with the do-rag and the red tractor.
The south side, we've been clearing our side to meet the county on the north side. So we've been here all morning pushing mud, cutting trees, and moving things out. And now that we got the road clear, look down there. We moved a number of campers out. They were 3 campers rolled over, washed away, and the rest were got out, and we moved them to higher ground.
There's nothing I can do, so I went back down to South Central Elementary School. That's where this helicopter was taking off to help somebody who had some heart issues. You got folks, just kind of like, what are we going to do here? You can see this thing lift off. I got even more footage of it with my phone. But they got that guy to the hospital. I think everything was okay. And so I ended up at the Nolichucky Volunteer Fire Department. That's where that car that you can track was for the next few days before we went down and got it, middle of the next week. And I was able to use.
It was a long time before we got that car back.
It was, and I was able
understandably
to
so too.
Yeah, and somebody at the VFD, I think there was some barbecue there, and so I got to eat a little bit. And somebody was like, "Hey, it looks like they've got Jackson Bridge cleared, at least to walk across." So my phone had no cell service, but I borrowed a lady's phone and got a hold of my wife and said, "Hey, I'm going to get a ride down to the head of Jackson Bridge Road, and I'm going to walk down that road, and I'm going to walk across the bridge, and I want you to pick me up on the other side." So that's what I did. And you can hear me talking about in the next clip with some audio, you'll hear me talking about earlier in that morning about how it would be great if I could get across this bridge if this happens. And then you hear me saying something about, hey, I've heard that maybe that's a possibility.
If I could get picked up over here, that'd not be the worst thing either. It'll be helpful if I can get over there. I heard a bridge might be about to open, so
that's what happened. And here I am. I've been dropped off. I got my backpack on. On I go. These fellas, they're looking over the side. Water's still pretty high. And here I am on the north side of the river, with the Washington County on that side, looking back. And sure enough, 30 minutes later or so, up a little further up the road, Angie arrives, our grandkids in the car, and takes me back to Johnson City. And I went straight to work because I had these amazing stories. Yeah. So I worked Saturday night.
Well, I remember you and I talking, and I had said something to the effect of, "Don't you want to go home?" And you had even said, "I can't go home." You had said there was too much that you needed to share and get put out there story-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty confident at that point that I had gotten some stuff that nobody else was going to get, and that was really super interesting stuff. So I just was like, yeah, I mean, if I've got enough, and I had enough adrenaline going that, I worked a lot over the rest of that Saturday and then that Sunday to get stories out. I got one out with Daryl Fender and with Diane Shelton, a package about, kind of what people there had gone through and what had happened down there at that part of the river where all those homes were destroyed. And then I did another story about the community, the guys in the community getting that bridge cleared. And, people were pretty interested in that. And so I'm glad that I put that time in. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if I could say I'm glad that I got stuck down there and that all happened, but it was, as a journalist, I mean, it's kind of lucky in a way to wind up in that kind of a situation. And here it is a year later, I saved all that footage because I'm like, I'm not getting rid of these files because they're pretty memorable.
Well, what's really interesting to me about, if you look at from your story being down there and even the people that you talk to it seems as if people kind of, it's like you got a first real look at just the processing of everything happening, of the initial shock at first. Well, I guess really at first, this is nothing, Nolichucky floods pretty regularly. Yeah. It's just another storm. just some power lines down, to then the shock of, oh, this is something way worse, and this is more than we ever expected, to then the devastation and despair of homes are gone. We don't know what to do. We've never seen anything like this. And then by really in just in a miraculously short amount of time, people from this community, from this area, immediately just picking themselves up and picking their friends and family up and starting to get to work and showing so much resiliency. So I can't imagine having seen that just firsthand for you, because I know that wasn't, you know, what you just showed was only a piece of it, just a fraction of so many people and so many stories of people affected by that.
Yeah, and I th- I do think that human beings in situations like that generally tend to pull together and do what needs to be done. I mean, I think sometimes people like to think, well, in our area, people are super special and blah blah blah. But I do think just because of the self-sufficiency that has been a hallmark of living in the mountains and in the Appalachians for generations and really a few couple centuries for white people anyway. Um, I think there's still remnants of that collective working together and just like even in the midst of something as shocking as this, like, okay, what do we do and let's go do it. I mean, those guys didn't have to try to work to get that bridge cleared. People didn't have to take their neighbors in. Um, and there's also negative things that happen in the wake of these kinds of situations. But I think by and large, um, what I saw, like you said, in the immediate shocked aftermath of that was people really kind of looking out for each other and trying to figure out what can we do right now to try to make the situation more livable, and really, it has forged, I think, a tie for me anyway with a lot of the people down in that community, and I've been back down there quite a number of times to do follow-up stories since then. And in fact, I've got one from somebody I met about a month ago working on the Enon Baptist Church story, a person whose home was destroyed, and she and her family now have another home. But going to do a story about that here once we hop out of our digital set.
Well, Jeff, thank you for sharing your story and your experiences from, I would say that day, but it was a little longer than a day for you.
A little longer,
Yeah.
but thank you for, yeah, I'm glad I was able to come in and do it. Hadn't really thought about it until this morning, and I thought, might be kind of interesting and cathartic and hopefully worthwhile to spend some time talking through that and showing people a little bit of what it was that I saw, over that 24 hours or so.
All right. Well, if any of our viewers are still interested in hearing more of the stories from Hurricane Helene, we do have available on our website and our WJHL Plus streaming app. You can watch our full documentary that aired last night on September 25th, and that is After Helene: Stories of Strength. And Jeff, you have a story in there as well that you put together, and it's a series of stories of resiliency and how people are still managing to, rebuild their lives 1 year after this natural disaster. So if you'd like to hear more, definitely check out our documentary. Our colleague Chris Greer that we've mentioned before, he did a lot of work putting that together, as did everyone else who contributed, and it's a very moving set of stories. So, uh, but thank you for joining us, Jeff. Thank you again for sharing, and we will talk to you next time.
All right.